We can now say the decision taken in 1975 by this country to join the common market has been reversed by this referendum to leave the EU.
I'm convinced that a trade deal between the US and the UK is in the national interest of both countries and will cement the crucial relationship that exists between us, particularly as the UK leaves the European Union and reaches out to the world.
I think Brexit's going to be a wonderful thing for your country. I think when it irons out, you're going to have your own identity, and you're going to have the people that you want in your country, and you're going to be able to make free trade deals without having somebody watching you and what you're doing.
I think that if you look at the figures last week, we had a net increase of 330,000 all told, 333,000, 270,000 from the EU, 184,000 net, a city the size of Oxford from the EU. Now, the question the Remain campaign have to answer is, what is their long-term vision? What is their programme for the country if the numbers continue at this rate? Because at the moment, if we grow the size of a city like Newcastle every year, we will see our population rise inexorably to about 70 or perhaps 80 million. Now, what the Remain campaign have to say is, what's their vision for this? Where are they going to... it may be a great vision for Britain, by the way. It may be a positive thing. But where are they going to build the homes?
Well, I would expect that, because the Westminster political elite have opened up our borders to levels of immigration Britain's never seen, and they decry anybody that wants to talk about it as being racist. They've done it for years. They try to sweep this whole issue under the carpet, and we're talking about it openly and honestly.
On June the 23rd, we all face a historic choice: to remain locked in a European Union ruled by an unelected elite, frankly indifferent to the suffering that their policies are causing, or to take back control. Take back control of huge sums of money, £350 million a week, and spend it on our priorities, such as the NHS.
First of all, tell me how much it costs the UK to be a member of the EU.
Well, that's both a very important question and a very tricky question to answer. In the first instance, the Treasury writes a cheque to the European Union every fortnight to the sum of £800 million. Now, that's not the whole picture, because that is basically, that's the gross contribution. Some of that money comes back as part of the overall net deal, over which the Treasury has a very limited say, so that's not necessarily well spent. However, once you factor in the direct and the indirect costs associated with the EU membership, the overall bill for business and for the country could be as high as £100 billion a year.
About 60% of law made last year originated from the EU. There's a huge amount of regulation, statute and law that emanates and was created under the auspices of the European Communities Act.
Here is regulated EU man waking from his regulated slumber to start his regulated day. You wouldn't think you'd need a law for pillowcases, but the EU has 5. But that's nothing. The pillow inside is subject to 109 different EU laws. As far as we can tell, there are only 11 EU laws pertaining to radio alarm clocks. There's around 400 governing the other stuff on Joe Citizen's bedside table. You can't be too careful with duvets and sheets, so there's around 50 laws governing those. There are 65 laws governing bathrooms, but that doesn't include the contents. How they managed to think up 31 laws for toothbrushes is beyond me. But let's face it, toothpaste is a bit weird, so 47 laws sounds about right.
So it's crunch time again for Greece. Eurozone finance ministers are meeting in Brussels to assess whether the country has met its obligations under the biggest bailout in history. Since 2010, Greece has received more than $250 billion in 2 international bailouts, and it's negotiated a third bailout worth $91 billion.
The French president has warned that the European Union is facing a crisis at its foundation.
Italy is facing a drastic number of refugees by the end of 2015, believed to be in the region of 1.5 million.
It is not quite on a biblical scale, but an exodus it certainly is. Migrants who've been trapped at the railway station in Budapest now deciding to walk the hundreds of miles